Welcome to the What Now podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Powers. Follow along as I figure out how to go from feeling lost and at a crossroads in my life to hopefully, eventually, being found. If you have ever felt like you needed a change or pivoting from your current experience is necessary, but you just don't know how, join me. Wanderers are always welcome. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to What Now, a podcast for Lost and Found. This is your host, Amanda. I apologize. This week was delayed, and I have been so busy with work and things closing out at the end of the year, and people were out, and I was covering, and I had friends in town and plans, and almost every day I was working straight through lunch. So I would get to the end of the day, and it would be time to walk darks before it would be midnight by 4:30, and I would come back and sit down and go, I have no brain power. I have no brain power to be creative right now or create a post or edit a video. And the week ago, when I did say that I was trying to batch record some episodes, I did attempt to do that. And the very first episode glitched and there was absolutely no audio and I couldn't recover it and everything was a mess. And so I tried to not stress myself out because the last time I got very, very stressed in September, I made myself surprisingly sick. So I did not want to do that right before my big trip. So here we are. It is almost Thanksgiving. We are recording. This is November 23rd as of the time of recording. So I'm so excited. We're about to go on our Friendsgiving dinner tonight. My lovely friend Ashley is hosting and has invited a bunch of people from the neighborhood and from her friend group to her house. And so I have baked all the baked goods. I did a pecan pie, mini pumpkin cheesecakes, and a huge batch of my Nutella stuffed brown buttered chocolate chip cookies, which have always been a huge fan favorite. And they were last year, which is why Ashley has asked me to bake everything again. So here we go. I recorded all of that, so I'm going to post about it later. So you may see that if you follow me on social media, amanda.k.powers. And I haven't really posted much about my baking since COVID. So you'd have to scroll all the way back to like anything from 2020 to see whatever it is that I used to post about. But I really got into baking and sourdough bread, just like everybody else in the world, when we couldn't go outside. And I have forgotten how much fun it is to make a complete mess in your house and then have to clean it all back up. But it was good. I think everything turned out well. I'm a little hesitant on the cheesecakes because they're so small. I may have overestimated and left them in the oven a little bit too long. So I hope that they are not complete garbage. We shall see. But everything is good so far. So I'm excited to see my friends tonight. But I didn't want to overdo it right now because of the software glitching and potentially giving me a hard time tomorrow while I'm trying to edit. And I don't want to do that simply because I do not have time. I am leaving for South America and Antarctica on this coming Wednesday. So that'll be the 27th. And then I'm gone. I'm out of here. And I don't have time to edit an hour-long episode and have it take me 3 hours because of the software. So we're going to jump into it. This previous week, I've been spending a lot more time with friends, and a few of them have kind of brought up similar concerns or questions, and they weren't all the same problem, but a lot of them just kind of fed into the scarcity mindset. It's the end of the year. So a lot of people have started to think about, they're reflecting on what have I actually accomplished? What have I actually gained this year? What can I say that I've, improved on, or am I mediocre, or I'm watching all of my other friends or family, progress in these certain directions and I'm still not. And when is that ever going to happen for me? How am I ever going to get that? How do I replicate that into my life? Or the one that really hit home to me was a friend of mine I went to dinner with, and she was asking me about my trip to Tampa and how the baby shower was with my friend Stevie. And so I told her about it. And then she showed me pictures of her niece, who was born last year and had just recently turned 1. And she was telling me about how much she loves her family and loves her brother, and she's so excited for her brother to have a kid, but that it was really hard for her to sometimes be there and participate in the family events because she's a couple years older than me. She's already been married and divorced, and, high-powered woman in DC, used to work on the Hill, and has made a very successful career for herself after leaving Capitol Hill. And because of that, made a lot of different life changes for things that she used to think were part of her purpose, becoming a wife and potentially becoming a mother, and then realizing that that was not a good idea. And she went through a divorce and changed jobs and moved to Nashville, and now her family is appearing to move forward, whereas she kind of feels like she might not be as far along as what she thought she would be at this point. And essentially was saying, like, I know your brother just got married recently, and I'm sure they're young. They want to have kids. And I said, yeah, they do. And I'm sure they will let us know soon enough when it happens. But I hadn't really thought about it. Like, I just, I'm happy for my brother. He seems, not that Jackson says much a lot, to begin with, but he seems very happy. His wife is very happy. So I think it's a great thing that that's what worked out for both of them. And she was just explaining, I didn't think I was jealous, or I didn't think I was worried about it, about kids or about marriage ever again, until I went back for her first birthday, and holding her and spending time with her hurt in a way that I never thought it would hurt. And so you just need to watch out. Like, you need to be careful if you start spending time with your brother and his future kids and stuff. And I kind of brushed it off because I was just kind of like, oh yeah, I'm sure in the moment you probably felt that way, but like you are, I tried to be, boost her back up, and not beef her up, boost her back up to just kind of explain, no, like, you've got X, Y, and Z going on for you. You're so smart and pretty, and, you could have any of these high-powered people that you work with, or, any of that circle, like that's a networking opportunity where you can meet somebody that's probably at your standards or at the expectation or lifestyle choices that you want to have, might match better now that you've, switched careers and stuff, and I tried to focus it back on the positive, but it did slowly like stick in my head, kind of like an earworm thing, where that thought, just be careful. It's going to hit you differently, and it's going to hurt unexpectedly. And I used to go back and forth a lot for so many reasons, but the kids and the marriage thing, especially over the last, 2.5 years now, moving to Nashville, where it's kind of like, all right, I have time. I have plenty of time. Like, I'll just start over here. I'll date here. I'll meet somebody else here. I wasn't matching or meeting up with other people in Philadelphia, and I wasn't meeting people that I thought were right for me. And I'll get it right this time when I move to this new city. And 2.5 years later, I haven't gotten any of it right at all. And some of that might be my fault. Some of that might be the opposite person just not being the right match, whatever it might be. But it's not a problem, I guess, that I try to hyper focus on. Like, the clock is ticking, time is running out. Your biological clock is, counting down. The sands of time are slowly falling through is that a sand watch? Sand timer? You know what like the thing, an hourglass. That's what I'm talking about. The hourglass. Like, that's what I'm visualizing when people are like, time is running out for you. Like, is it though? Because what if time closed on the life that I thought I was supposed to have? Time closed when I made the decision to leave, right? Time closed when Roe v. Wade got overturned and the threats on my body started and in Tennessee. But like, time is running out is one of the worst things I think you could say to a woman, or a woman in particular, especially if you're trying to force her to come up with a decision about your life's purpose and whether or not it's to be a mother and stay at home, or if it's to be a mother and go to work, or if it's to work only and not become a mother and just be a really cool aunt. It's probably in the top 5 most cliche things you can say to a woman. But to say to anyone at all that time is running out, I feel like puts so much unnecessary pressure and anxiety onto something that you can't control, because you can't force yourself out of whatever season you're living. If anything, if I have learned anything through this podcasting process and through reconnecting to my creative self. Your life is going to ebb and flow with seasons. You can think about it as the actual like spring, summer, fall if you want to, but like as your year progresses, you change and you adapt. And especially as a woman, when your hormone cycle is changing and adapting every single month, every single week is slightly different for you. The neurochemical makeup inside of your brain actually changes, and that's how your mood gets affected, and your skin and your weight, water retention and whatever. You are ebbing and flowing so much that the last thing in the world I think any of us should be doing is forcing yourself to hurry up in a season or hurry up and finish a season before it's come due. Because even though I may not know what the answers are right now, every single season and every single triumph and loss and pivoting moment in my life has served a purpose. It's going to get me to where I think I want to go. I don't know what piece of the puzzle it's going to sit, where it'll go. I know it's a piece. I just don't know where it fits. I don't know why it was shaped into the shape that it is, but that's so crucial. And I think we need to work on, in 2025, I want us to work on reversing this scarcity mindset. You can't stop people from telling you, oh my God, time's running out, or you're never going to have self-worth if you don't have X, Y, or Z thing in your life, or you're not going to be enough of a woman if you don't become a mother, or you're not going to be enough of a successful person if you don't become an entrepreneur, or if you don't write a book, or if you don't sell digital marketing products on Instagram. Like, just hot garbage. Don't let yourself be fed this hot garbage that you have to live in a world of scarcity because everything's a zero-sum game and there's not enough room for anybody at the table, especially you loser. Like, if you haven't accomplished this much by 30, you're a waste of space. And it's just not, none of it's true. None of it's true. I was listening to some podcasts to kind of get me in the right headspace for talking about this scarcity mindset subject and how to hopefully help me feel better about that, terrible earworm that like you just need to prepare yourself because it's going to hurt. And I didn't want it to hurt. I didn't want the scarcity mindset to be a seed in the back of my mind. And then 9 months from now, a year from now, a year and a half from now, whenever my my brother and his wife may be so lucky to become parents, like I don't want that to hit differently, because I've met so many of my wonderful, beautiful friends, like from childhood or from college, who are married and have had children, and they have become mothers, and they've found ways to make it work and still go to work and still run their businesses and still thrive and be amazing, wives and moms and friends and whatever. And so I have so many good examples of these people, and I don't want it to feel differently. I know it'll feel more emotional and probably more connected because it'll be my brother's child, and like I can say I'm an auntie again, kind of a deal. And that's very touching, but I didn't want it to hurt. So I started to try and reconcile with the scarcity mindset that I was having and acknowledge, hey, this is popping up. Don't let it grow. Don't let it go further than it already is. So what can we do? And so I did a little bit of research about where did the concept scarcity mindset come from originally, who was, the forefather of this psychological discussion. And then I found a couple of, obviously Instagram reels and other podcasts that kind of talked about it and put it into a slightly different perspective. And I will make sure to link those for you. So those will be in the show notes if you want to follow along and listen to those as well. But the first thing that really kind of inspired me to talk about it, I was listening to Case Kenny. We interviewed Case earlier this year. He's a great guy. He also has his own show, New Mindset, Who Dis, on Spotify and Apple. You can buy all of his books on Amazon as well. He's got a lot of mindfulness journals and motivational essays and things like that you can read and, follow along with him in his journey. And I believe he has a second book coming out soon. So that'll be really great. And I hope we can bring him back on to talk about it soon. But his episode 632, it's titled Celebrate This Season of Your Life. And I loved that because he focused so much on not forcing yourself out of whatever stage you're in. If it's not a growth period, try and figure out what the stuck feeling is supposed to be. Where is your universe, or where is your destiny trying to guide you, and what can you pull from this bad experience to help, catapult you to the next place. But in the meantime, savor it, because even painful things don't last forever. So trying to wish away your life is the fastest way to build up regrets, and the fastest way to not learn your lessons when you're trying to get stuff out of the way really, really quickly. So he basically was saying you cannot force a season to start or to end. And when you hyper focus on something and trying to force it to happen, it will not get you what you want in the end. We typically tend to lose sight of the fact that we can have a season that we want to be in, but that might be different from the season we are actually in. And when you're in a forcing mode, you lose sight of the fact that life is bigger than this one singular season. You're going to have more than one relationship, more than one job. You're going to have more than one timeline sometimes. And life is going to always be bigger than the one season that you're currently living in. Because if I was measuring my own success based on, only the last 2.5 years of my life, I would be freaking out, because I'd be a newbie. I'd be just starting off in a brand new career. You're like, holy shit, I've been out of the game for so long. I haven't been creative since I was a little kid, and I've got 20 years of catching up to do. There's so much technology and software, and everything's so overwhelming, and cameras and things I should be doing with my recording software and all this kind of stuff, and microphones and headphones. And just so if I was hyper focusing on the fact that I'm in a very uncomfortable transition period, I would be completely disregarding all of the other phases of my life that led me to this moment. Young Amanda that was so creative and a dancer and happy and joyful when it comes to spending time with other people and making them laugh and sharing her art, whether that was physical or literal. I've realized that if I were to only focus on the season that I'm in now, I would be doing a disservice to that little girl, because when I quieted her, when I kept her voice silent or small or dismissed, she pivoted and went down a path that maybe distracted her from her real purpose. And while I think the context of what I wanted to do back then, led me to different seasons and helped me to open up and become the person I am today, I think I will always regret forcing her to be quiet. But I've realized now that the season I'm in now, in order to create the most value out of this season and do what Case is saying, not losing sight of this current season's purpose, where I am struggling creatively, struggling financially, struggling with my purpose, it would be a disservice to that little girl, that version of Amanda, if I were to forget all about her. Forget about where she came from. Forget about her values and what she wanted and what she used to believe in. Because this season is about me putting life back into her. Trying to figure out how to help her exist again, how to help her show up, how to be the person that she thought we were going to become, but didn't. All right, I have to be careful because I can't cry too much, because I do have like a full face of makeup and I'm supposed to go to this party. Oh my god. Ugh. Amanda! That little girl didn't know that there was a really big scary world out there. That there was going to be so many people that were going to tell her no. So many people that would have laughed at her dream of being a writer or a creative or a director. So many people that would have told her, just keep your day job, sweetie. So I have to honor that season existed as a child and that I'm out of it. But I think the current season, if I'm going to make the most of it, of this transition period, I have to honor all of the previous seasons and all of their previous purposes. Whether I know what their purposes are or not, doesn't matter. I just think that Case is right, that when you worry so much about how to get to the next place, or how to win the next thing, or how to reach your next goal, or how to gather as many resources as possible, because you need to do everything all at once immediately, or else it'll never happen for you, or you'll never get it. You'll never be as good as your competitors because they're just inherently better than you are. And if you have that kind of mindset, you are going to stay stuck. And Case says, we put so much pressure on ourselves and we put so much weight and importance on certain pieces of life that we end up misconstruing a timeline or a goal or a person or a season as the entirety of our happiness. But we cannot force a season that we are not ready to be in. So when my friend was saying the other day about, feeling hurt and regretting and anxious about whether or not she'd ever become a mom, or if she would ever be married again, and that I needed to, be mindful of the fact that I could probably start to feel that way as well, especially when my brother gets to move forward and I don't. I wish I had told her that our happiness as young women in their 30s trying to make their way in the world, our happiness cannot be hung up on the fact that we are not in the married with kids season. We can acknowledge that our friends and our family members have made it to the married with kids season and be happy for them, but trying to force it to happen, trying to force going on dates when you're not comfortable or you don't like a person just for the sake of being in a relationship, that won't make you happy. Going out and getting pregnant and then suddenly becoming a single mom and having to figure that out, that may not make you happy either. In fact, that would be terrifying for me right now. Absolutely terrifying if something like that were to happen. So I've realized that the easiest way for me to not get afraid of the scarcity of partnerships or the scarcity of available relationships for me is that this is not a season for me when that's going to exist, and that's okay. Maybe this is the season where I do exactly what I said. Like, I need to regrow creative Amanda. I need to flourish that side of my life, and that takes so much focus and so much of my time, that I don't have time to water the plant that is, if we have all of our goals into pots here, I have not been watering the let's get married and have kids pot for years. And I may not get the opportunity to water it ever again. I don't know, right? Like I really don't, but I can't let my value, my self-perceived value, right? Like I can't let my value be determined by the singular season that I'm in right now. That would be a disgrace or a disservice to who I am as a person, the person I'm trying to become, and the person that I used to be, because all three of those parts make me who I am. And I've already spent too much time in my life denying who I am, closing off who I am, either to make myself more comfortable, to make others more comfortable, to do what I thought I was supposed to be doing versus what I wanted to do deep down. And I'm really tired of that. I'm tired of feeding into that scarcity mindset and, focusing on how I'm never going to have the things that I want, because it's simply not true. So I wanted to look up the history of the scarcity mindset to hopefully kind of understand what exactly it is, and is it truly the reversal of the abundance mindset, right? Like the flip side of the two sides of the same coin of this particular mindset status. And so in case you do not know, if you do know, feel free to skip ahead a little bit. But in 1989, Stephen Covey coined the term scarcity mentality and abundance mindset in his book that was called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And this is a book that's been reprinted for years and years and years. There's been multiple editions, printed in multiple languages, an international sensation. So it's a very common book that's been brought up. But this was the original book that coined these two terms. And Mr. Covey is noted for saying, I am not a product of my circumstances. I am a product of my decisions. And so I feel like that was a really powerful way to think about mindset and mindfulness movements these days. A lot of people on the internet are going to try or in life too, but a lot of people on the internet right now want to tell you that they know exactly how to, flip that switch for you in your mindset. They know exactly what's wrong with you, and everything that's bad is all because it's all made up in your head, and your thoughts control your actions. And I think that does hold some weight, but you want to make sure that you're not, falling prey to some snake oil salesman either when it comes to these mindfulness coaches or mindfulness practices. But Covey has a research and psychological background. So a lot of what he wrote is researched and database. And I love that, the nerd in me, originally getting a psychology degree back in the day. I love that kind of stuff. So I should actually really look up this book and buy whatever the latest edition is. But I loved that quote. I am not a product of my circumstances. I am a product of my decision. And I think that's great because it acknowledges that everyone is born into their own individual life. You're never going to live someone else's life. You're only ever going to live your own. And so you got to do what you can with what you have in your current environment. And everybody's going to be dealt different circumstances, but it's what you choose to do based on those circumstances that's going to change your life. It's what you choose to think about. It's what you choose to consume. It's what you choose to eat or participate in or not, right? So how you fuel your body and your mind is your decision. We just have to hope that you're going to pick something that's actually beneficial for you and not detrimental. So as you're reading through the book, it discusses the scarcity mindset and explains that the scarcity mindset is a pattern of thinking that focuses on what you don't have and the underlying belief that you are not ever going to have the things that you want, even when you do have access to basic needs such as food, water, housing, income. Often the scarcity mindset is caused by trauma from receiving a lack of your basic needs. So if you grew up with very limited resources, very limited opportunities to grow or educate yourself or engage with others the same way that somebody else born into a different life probably had, it will feel like you're scarce. And often this trauma due to a lack of these things will manifest later on in your relationships as an adult. And it could pivot into or evolve into the anxious attachment style, avoidant attachments, etc. And I always think it's really good to sometimes look at the science behind what it is that you're feeling and see if, there's any research that can explain what's going on. And then you can make a decision about, all right, I've informed myself. Now what? What do I do? How do I fix this? So some things to keep in mind if you believe you might be dealing with a scarcity mindset, some behavior issues that might show up. You're holding on to resources. You're being less generous than you normally would. You're not sharing. You fear loss, and loss in all directions. Losing money, losing time, losing relationships, losing access to certain products or availability of, food, your house. Your water, anything like that might scare you into believing that you're not going to be able to keep them for some reason. Some emotional things that might be popping up that are associated with the scarcity mindset also include, being overwhelmed, being depressed, feelings of being paralyzed, disassociating in your life, not realizing that the stress from the mental toll that it's taking on you is now manifesting in how you handle things emotionally as well. Another thing you could notice is issues with focus. You're paying more attention to your competitors than your own goals. So you are paralyzed emotionally, physically, mentally, because you're in that cycle of the hamster wheel of the comparison game. And when you can't get off that hamster wheel, you just stay stuck. And you'll start to tell yourself, oh, well, it's not even worth trying to do these things because all my competitors already took it all. They already have everything. There's no room for me there because they've already claimed it all. I'll never be able to claim it because I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not fast enough, wealthy enough, whatever, right? Whatever your brain is telling you, that's wrong. And that can be really, really tough to refocus your mind especially if you grew up in a situation or an environment or a circumstance that reinforced that thought to you. You are going to constantly be competing for resources. You need to hoard or store or clutch tightly to what you do have and don't let go. And it's very hard to not balance out after that if you don't acknowledge what's going on. Covey also discusses ways to reverse this scarcity thought process. And to paraphrase this, the best way to reverse the scarcity mentality is to create a abundance mentality. And the abundance mentality flourishes when you have high self-worth and you acknowledge the security in your life. And you can build high self-worth and security by creating multiple habits, right? The 7 habits. But the first 3 habits that he discusses for how to build the abundance mindset are: number 1, to be proactive; number 2, to begin with the end in mind; and number 3, to put first things first. So when you're being proactive about your goals or what it is that you want to go after, essentially it's to lean in with your strategy, right? If you're going to go after something, you can't just sit on the sidelines. If you want to claim something out of the universe, or claim something as your own, or claim something as a future you is going to obtain, you got to manifest that physically, verbally, socially, writing it down, reading it, saying it out loud, saying it back to yourself as you read it, and then repeating that process over and over again to prime your brain to know that that is coming, and to prime your brain to realize that this is what I actually want and this is what will come to me. And so any decision we make going forward needs to match up to that. And so that kind of leads you into habit number 2, begin with the end in mind. So if you know what your end goal is, or the thing that it is that you want, you come up with, all right, the end result is going to look like this. How do I reverse engineer what steps I need to take in order for that to show up? So what step would come just right before then, and then that one, and that one, and that one, leading all the way back to my starting point. So that way I can see these milestones ahead of me and know what it is that I need to accomplish, what habits do I need to build, where do I need to be proactive in my life in order to hit each of these milestones and get there. And as you hit a milestone and as you continue to be more proactive over time, those smaller wins every single month or every single week, whatever it is you're doing, they stack up. And those small wins, you could almost think of it like a piggy bank. Like you're dropping a coin or a quarter into that piggy bank every single time you succeed and complete a habit that's building you towards your original goal. And as you drop that coin into the piggy bank, your self-worth grows and grows and grows. And ideally, you're compounding that investment. And then habit number 3, I thought was great for people that are just hyper organized and you need to work on preventing yourself from getting distracted. There are going to be so many different steps that you need to take in order to get to your end goal, right? Like if you want to break things down into bite-sizable chunks or mindfully digestible goals, things to get done, you need to put first things first. So list out every single thing that you need to do, what order they might need to go in, and given the certain phase of your life at this time, what absolutely has to be done, and nothing else behind it can be accomplished until these get done first. Those are your primary goals. Those are your primary target items that you need to hit before you move on to the next taskers. What can be done or what needs to be done but doesn't have a timeline on it or doesn't have a time limit for when it could be done can go further down the list. And then what is nice to have but doesn't actually have to be done in order for the goal to be successful, but it would make it look better or would help you feel better about it, those go at the bottom where you can get to them later. So that way you're prioritizing in chunks with things that make the most sense for you and feed into the strategy that you've built out for yourself, where you begin with the end in mind, do the tasks that actually help you get the very first item done, the very first milestone finished, and then so on and so forth. That way you get to watch yourself grow and you get to see yourself with forward momentum, but you're not freaking out about how big the mountain is. You're not worried about the fact that Everest is thousands of feet high, but you won't be so scared of trying to climb this mountain or this major goal, metaphorical goal of your life, because you know where the taskers are, you know where the trail is, you know exactly what path it is that you're going to take, and it'll help you because every single couple thousand feet you get up, you're like, all right, holy shit, I did that. I made it. I'm getting closer and closer. It's going to be great. So other tips and stuff that you can take with you to work on this, the rest of the psych research that I could find basically talked about could actually help you with tactical things that you could do on a day-to-day basis. So if you didn't want to get too in the weeds with the data, other things that you could try practicing to help fix or negate that scarcity mindset would be practicing gratitude. You could write in your gratitude journal every day. You could say your 3 things that you're grateful for out loud every day, or practice that, with your partner if you have somebody to do that with, just something where you acknowledge everything might feel like a shithole, or the room is on fire and everything's fine. The dog meme where he's like, it's fine, I'm fine, no big deal. Instead of just doing that and living in denial, remind yourself, this might be terrible right now, and I might be in the middle of a burning room, but I have my health, I have my family, I have my dog. I don't know, whatever it is that's getting you through the day. Say those 3 things. I am grateful for XYZ. You can practice mindfulness techniques with reframing negative thoughts. You can do reverse affirmations. Instead of this, say this kind of a thing, teaching your brain to practice that, because your brain is pre-designed, I think, from an evolutionary biological standpoint, to help you survive. You interpret information very quickly in order to deal with fight or flight, your trauma responses, to make sure that you're okay and you get through whatever the situation is. So your brain is primed to really hyper consume negative stimuli because it wants you to live. So you also have to train your brain to think in the positive as well, and to acknowledge that positive stimuli are just as beneficial, if not more so, than hyper focusing on the negatives. So I would work on that. Surrounding yourself with positivity. I don't know that that's the easiest thing to do, especially if it's toxic positivity, where you're not really in a circumstance or an environment where you can actually express how you feel in a way that makes you feel safe and makes you feel heard. Surround yourself with positivity, I think, when you are actually available to receive it. I think you'll get to that point and be able to accept that from others or from your environment if you start practicing the negative, reversing negative thoughts, building up your affirmations, practicing gratitude, finding the positive where you can is going to be crucial. But don't go to the point where you're so positive that you deny how you actually feel just to quiet down the negative, because that's not fair to you either. So keep that in mind. Invest in your personal growth. If you want to take classes, if you want to join a running club, if you want to learn how to cook, you can, go to a chef sponsored night somewhere. You can read more books on a certain topic. You can practice meditation. You can get your yoga certification. Like, I'm just listing off stuff, like things that you wouldn't normally do that you used to think would be a challenge. And you're kind of like, you know what? Next year, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go for it. Like, for me, investing in my personal growth is definitely through this podcast. And I have grown, I think, a lot since I first started, but there's so much more that I still want to do. Like, I would love to, I wrote that on my vision board last year and I did not accomplish it, was getting back into dance. I did not do that. Other than dancing for fun with my friends, but actually going to a class and taking lessons, I did not do. I want to invest in that. I want to invest in my personal growth. I want to get better at something else that's also creative to hopefully stimulate the rest of my podcasting thoughts and plans. You can practice generosity, give back. You can volunteer. I think that's some of the best ways to get yourself out of the house. Don't stay alone, If you have a church you could volunteer at, a domestic violence shelter, at a food kitchen, at a veteran services building, anything like that that's in your hometown. There are so many different ways to help others who might be struggling with a lot of the same things, or who might be in a more detrimental or dire circumstance. And I don't think you should ever underestimate the power of a kind gesture, the power of just showing other people respect when they least expect it. It can change somebody's whole outlook on life or their opinion of, themselves or the world. And so just treating other people with intentional kindness is so crucial. Another thing you can practice is, practicing, like we said, mindfulness and meditation. Limit your exposure to negative influences. If there are things that you're following or it's showing up on your social media feeds that you don't like anymore, or that make you feel bad about yourself, or make you spiral into the comparison game, mute them, unfollow them, block them, whatever it is you got to do. Don't keep those negative influences around. You don't need them. They just add to your baggage. And trust me, your bags are already heavy as hell. Don't add more. And then finally, of course, seek professional help. If you've tried all these different things and you're like, Amanda, I don't want to write in a stupid gratitude journal. I don't want to do all these things. Like, I'm not like you. I can't just write notes on my mirror and post them up there. Like, it's so dumb. This isn't it. Like, I've tried everything else. I've tried alcohol. I've tried drugs. I've tried suppressing it. I've tried expressing it too much. I've done all the extremes, to the left and to the right, up and down, and nothing is truly getting at the heart of my trauma and my scarcity mindset, and nothing ever feels like it'll ever be abundant for me. Everything I try just fails or withers away when I hold it. Okay. All right. Take a deep breath. You got this, but it might be time for professional help. Your friends are not your therapists. They are not, unless you are a therapist and you only hang out with other therapists or professional psychologists, but you know what I mean. It's not normal for you to hold everything in on your own and never let it out. And it's also not sustainable to unload everything that you're thinking and doing and feeling onto your friends when they also have their own things that they are thinking and doing and feeling and being overwhelmed by. And a good friend is going to be the person that's always there to support you and listen to you, but who also has the strength and courage and respect for you to say, I love you so very much, but I have hit my limit of my capability to help you in this problem, and I think it would be great for you to find professional help and see where you can go from there. Say something like that if you're dealing with somebody that might be overwhelming you with their scarcity mindset. Say it in your own words, of course, but you don't have to abandon your friend. Yes, they might be in a negative headspace, but unless they're being toxic and cruel and mean to you, you can tell them, hey, I love you and I think you can get better. This too shall pass, but in the meantime, let's go get you what you need from somebody that can actually give it to you. That's not me. And reminding each other just that there really is plenty of room at the table. Don't forget to ask yourself, do I actually want to be at this particular table? Why am I so obsessed with everybody else that gets to sit here and I'm not sitting there yet? Or I don't have access or a seat saved for me at that table. Well, did you show up there just because somebody else told you to? Or because you thought you were supposed to? Were you playing musical chairs with all these people, hoping that somebody would get up so that you could sit down? What happens if once you actually get there, you realize it's not a table you want to be at? So you spent all that time fretting over it, freaking out, putting so much pressure and stuff on yourself, forcing yourself to push through a season so that way you'll be eligible to sit at this table. But what happens if you get to that table and you don't want to be there? Think about it. Why sit at a table you don't want to be at? Why go to a party you don't feel welcomed at or appreciated at? Forcing a relationship or forcing a situation or forcing a phase of your life to come either to end quickly or come sooner really might not get you where you want to be if you're not thinking through what your actual end goal is. Because what if the table you were meant to sit at was a table you created, was a space you cultivated and built up, with your blood, sweat, and tears and respect? What if the table you were meant to actually sit at and participate in was the one where you invited other people to be there? You made it a safe space for other people to sit down, no matter who they are, no matter where they came from, no matter what circumstances they had growing up. You made it a table where people could accept who they are and find what really makes them happy. I think I'd rather do that rather than trying to hurry up and force myself to sit at the married with kids table. Like, ooh, I finally get to be at the adult table. Nah. I'm apparently going to be at the kids table for the rest of my life. I'll be with all the nieces and nephews separately. The further along I get in this creative aspect, this creative career, the harder and harder it is for me to visualize what that kind of a life would look like for me. I don't know where I'm going. I don't really know what I'm doing with my life right now, but I used to be able to visualize what a married with kids Amanda would look like, and now I can't see her. So I'm not going to stand in line for that table. I'm not. I think I'd rather build my own, or even if it's like some folding chairs and plastic and metal, like fine, I can upgrade the table later. I can get a 8-seat mid-century modern with multiple butterfly slides another day. But in the meantime, I've got an old beer pong table from college and stuck in my garage, but I'll get it out and I will gladly fold it up and lay it down and grab you a chair if you want to join. You're always welcome. Wanderers are always welcome with me. So I'll just close this out tonight with a final quote from the one and only my queen, Danielle Wilson. She posted this daily training mindset the other day when she was at a gym in Chicago, and she said, moving slowly with intention will always beat moving fast without purpose. And I used to think as a kid, I want to hurry up and do this. I want to hurry up and drive. I want to hurry up and vote. I want to hurry up and go to college. I want to hurry up and get a degree. I want to hurry up and meet my person. I want to hurry up and, what is it that people used to say? I want to have 3 kids before, 3 before 30 or whatever that adage used to be. I don't know if people are still doing that or not, but I want this, I want this, I want this. And I don't know if the universe could hear me subconsciously asking for that so desperately, and therefore it said no, like not yet, not yet, not yet. Or maybe it was actually saying, you're not meant for that, you're meant for something else. But I might feel like I'm trudging through the mud now with my creative side, but I think I need to move slowly with intention and avoid moving fast without purpose, because I don't want to get even further down a path that's wrong for me, because it's just going to take double time to get back to where I was, and I don't want to lose sight of that. So I hope you take that with you in the coming weeks, where you might be feeling overwhelmed and frustrated with yourself for not accomplishing what you wanted this year, or thinking that there's not enough left or available to you when you look around the table or you look around at everybody else who seems to have a seat and you don't. I really encourage you not to force yourself out of a season and not force yourself into a new season that isn't right for you yet. Move slowly with intention, because it will always beat moving fast without a purpose. I love you guys. Have a wonderful week. You know the drill. Like, subscribe, leave a review, share this episode with your friends, your family, your loved ones, your aunties, nieces, uncles, nephews, even those babies, all those little babies that I haven't met yet. Give them a hug. Tell them your Aunt Amanda has some wise words. Sometimes she's mostly really silly, but she's trying her best. Anyway, I love y'all. Love you, mean it. Send me some messages. Let me know what you think of the show, any feedback you might have. You could find me at askwhatnowpodcast@gmail.com. I am amanda.k.powers on Instagram. You Podcast for the Lost on Instagram, Podcast for the Lost on TikTok. And until next time, wanderers are always welcome.